Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast, the show that brings you weekly advice and news at the beginning of every weekend. Introducing first your hosts, Mack, Mark, and Landon. Hey, we are back live with another episode. It is the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Mack, and wherever you are and however you may be listening, we want to thank you for making us a part of your day. It's episode 44, coming to you on Saturday, March 16th. We are recording well in advance because Mark and I are on March break, and we've got lots of things going on in our sort of 12 days of free time before things get crazy again. So we are recording ahead of schedule. But Mark and Landon are here with me. And on episode 44 today, we are talking about potential breakouts in 2019. Going to be a fast and furious episode coming to you with lots of takes and opinions. But boys, you excited for some potential breakouts 2019?
Bro,
Absolutely.
You're talking to William Takespierre himself.
That's terrible. I'm just kidding.
It is. No, actually, I sullied your great introduction, Mac.
Okay, let's restart.
Hey, guys. Hey, happy Saturday. We're talking about breakouts today. I'm pumped. This is a topic that gets, you talk about throughout the fantasy season, but to look at it in a super early way, this is the time to do it. We've just come off the combine. We're looking at the draft soon and free agency coming up. This is exciting stuff.
This episode better be one of the best that we've done, because at the time of this release, I'm going to be driving back, a 22-hour drive back to Toronto from Orlando, and it's going to be super depressing, and I'm going to need something to sort of pick me up and carry me through. So I'll be listening to this episode. I hope it's really great. I anticipate it to be everything that it should be. But let's try and put a little effort, a little extra into this one, because I need that. I'm going to need this in like 2 weeks' time.
Make sure you remember these names, Mac, for your fantasy football team next year. And you need to draft them all.
All of them.
All of them. If they're all on your team, you're going to win another fantasy championship.
Are you just like rubbing salt in my wounds, or?
Let's talk about breakouts from last year.
The fans can't see, but Landon is kind of seething and rubbing his hands together.
The once dynasty champion. Yeah, the once dynasty champion has now passed the torch to Landon, and I'm still trying to get my first Gridiron Tradition win. It's been like a decade, and I've come second 5 times.
Yeah, so, I know.
Yeah, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Yeah.
Anyways, last year's breakouts.
Well, I was going to say, we are on Instagram, if you want to keep up with us there. At Saturday Morning Snap. We're also on Twitter. The main account is SMS_fantasy. Landon is at Landon_SMS, and Mark is at MarkDraft_SMS. So, Landon, why don't you preface our discussion today? Classify what we sort of define a breakout as, and then talk about some 2018 breakouts, guys that took that leap last year.
Yeah, so a breakout might be different to different people. We want a tier jump. In my mind, you want a tier jump. You want guys where you draft them, say they're in your tier 3, tier 4, and they might draft a couple tiers to finish well above where you took them in your fantasy football draft, guys. And so here, an example that someone broke out was, Saquon Barkley. He absolutely broke out as a rookie. Now you did take him in the first round, but he is now going to be drafted probably in the first pick of the first round in next year's. So guys like Christian McCaffrey, he broke out. We have Devontae Adams. He's a top tier a wide receiver next year. Joe Mixon really took a jump forward. He was a late, early to mid third round pick last year, and he's definitely going to be in that conversation for a second, late first, early second round running back. Tyreek Hill. Adam Thielen started the year last year with so many 100-yard games. He was an absolute breakout. George Kittle broke out to be a top 3 tight end.
Adam Thielen might have broken out too much.
Yeah, he broke himself and died off end of the season.
Yeah, he broke the game.
Yeah, Pat Mahomes broke the game. He broke fantasy football, and he's going to be taken probably in the second. He's mocked in the second round. So,
which is, if you haven't listened to prior episodes, drafting him in the second round is it's foolishness.
Just foolish.
Crazy.
So these guys broke out in their own respective ways. Chris Carson could have broke out. He finished the season really great. Sony Michel, Marlon Mack, Andrew Luck came back and had a phenomenal season. So different ways all these players broke out. And we have our own breakout ideas. Hopefully, if you had those breakouts last year, you maybe won a championship. And hopefully, if you have our players, you will, again, win your fantasy football championship. What about you guys? Do you guys have any other kind of ways you classify a breakout? We have some really deep players on our list. We've got some early round guys. We have different reasons to why these players might break out.
Mark, I think we talked a little bit about values in a previous episode, and it was kind of a noodle scratcher for me to distinguish between breakouts and values. But I think there's a lot of parallels. And some of the players we're talking about may have been mentioned on that previous episode, but you're looking for guys that will that will have some kind of impact along the way, and maybe you're keeping them from a previous year, and maybe they suffered an injury last year, but you're really hoping that they can, jump up, gain value, and that they will make your team stronger throughout. Whereas first glance at your team, it may not seem like that's going to be the guy that you're starting week to week. And then later on in the season, they gain speed, gain momentum, and are getting a lot higher starts throughout the majority of leagues.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at a guy for a breakout, like Juju Smith-Schuster is like the perfect example of a breakout. Comes in the league, finds himself on a team with a guy like Antonio Brown, who is the best fantasy receiver in the game, commands a lot of attention, a lot of targets with the ball, and yet still finds a way to put up a top 10 season in his sophomore year, right? So I think Juju Smith-Schuster has completely broken out. If Antonio Brown goes to a poor destination, Juju might actually be ahead of Antonio Brown in terms of where you're going to draft him. So the ship has sailed with him, but he completely broke out and became a wide receiver 1 when he started as a waiver wire guy or a late round guy, 10 through 15 round guy in his, rookie season coming into the league. So that is like the perfect example of a complete breakout, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. It.
So like
Schuster,
I think
no one could have expected the numbers he put up last year. That is the definition of a breakout.
I am sort of with you though, Mark. Like there are a lot of parallels between a value and a breakout. I think like a small breakout would be essentially a value, like a guy that you pick up off the waiver wire and he gives you wide receiver 2/3 production. That would be a tremendous value play. But I think someone who breaks out is someone who could potentially be like a fantasy MVP that made a tremendous impact on your team, and you wouldn't have made the playoffs or won your league's championship without said player. So I think that's sort of the guys that we're sort of trying to talk about this year, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that sounds pretty fair, absolutely. And I wish I could go forward in time to the 2 weeks or week and a half when this episode comes out and see where some of these free agents have landed. So hopefully we don't sound too silly talking about some of these guys today, but either way, it's going to be a fun offseason for the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Lando, why don't you kick it off with our 2019 breakouts? We can draft anywhere. We're not saying we're drafting, round 5 and up. You can take a guy that you draft in the 4th round that you think might be a wide receiver 1. Like, you can make those cases, but I'll give you first pick and we'll sort of just work our way through.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm going with running back I absolutely love, and I did really last year, and I had high expectations for him. I had him as the number 2 rookie running back, and that is Darius Geis.
Let's go.
I think in Washington, they kind of had so many injuries on the offense, defense, O-line, running back, quarterback, everywhere. They're a prime team to have positive regression next season, just like the Bengals had last season. So I think it's going to be a good. They're not going to draft a running back. I'm not concerned about drafting a running back. I think guys will be ready and prepared, and you see him sprinting and running, and I'm just a big fan of the guy and the man who Darius Geis is, and I think he's gonna by far, in a way, outperform every running back in this rookie class, I think, by a long shot. So Geis is my breakout. He's going to be probably a good, solid running back 2. Could have running back 1 upside next season.
Well, that is not a team that really would have specialized for much of anything over the last decade offensively. And then we clearly saw their competence in the pass blocking, in the run blocking last year, giving Adrian Peterson such a spark this late in his career. And now to know that they can potentially uphold that for a player like Darius Geis is a great looking prospect for a breakout.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to sort of piggyback your sort of take, Landon, on a guy that had a lot of hype around him, looked to be trending as a starter, making a huge breakout campaign, and just riddled by injury. But I'm going to go Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Garoppolo's 2018 season ended early. He tore his ACL in week 3, right? If there's anything that you could say about the injury, it happened so early in the season that he should be completely rehabbed and ready to go for training camp, and definitely ready to go for week 1. So New England released him in order to sort of sign a big deal, and Jimmy Garoppolo got paid. And I think he's going to be a great quarterback for that franchise in the future. Through 3 games last year, he had 718 yards passing, just over 8 yards per attempt, and 5 touchdowns. So he sort of was trending towards having a really, really good season. And I think when you look at that 49ers team and how much they improved and had some, breakouts within their team last year with unideal quarterbacks, Nick Mullins, one to sort of talk about. George Kittle became one of the best tight ends in football. Matt Breida showed out as, a really solid running back. Dante Pettis in his rookie season was great, and that's a guy I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. I think when you take those 3 guys, and then you've got Jerick McKinnon on the back burner, and the prospect of Antonio Brown joining the team, like, the sky's the limit for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think a breakout season is all but guaranteed for him and the 49ers. I think it could be a great year.
I like that take. Jimmy Garoppolo, definitely worth a mention. That guy is, he's just got so much going on around him. And like you said, if Antonio Brown ends up there, that is a wild advantage for him and a huge upswing for that whole offense. But even if he doesn't, you see young guys like Dante Pettis and George Kittle growing so much last season. And a little bit of, they've got some promise at the running back position too. That Jimmy Garoppolo, once healthy, is going to come back to a very fresh looking 49ers team.
And like the crazy thing is right now if you use Fantasy Football Calculator to look at 2019 draft trends, Jimmy Garoppolo is being drafted as the last pick of the 11th round. So he's basically going in the 12th round. Like he is way late behind Matthew Stafford, Big Ben, Kirk Cousins, Tom Brady. Like I love Jimmy Garoppolo and Jameis Winston right in that neighborhood above guys like Big Ben and Matt Stafford and Kirk Cousins certainly. So I think there's also a lot of value in Jimmy G, but could be huge breakout top 5 QB we're potentially talking here.
Beauty.
Jimmy.
Moving on, I am going to talk about someone who had a super underwhelming rookie season in Pittsburgh, and that's James Washington, wide receiver. So at the start of last season, he had a really promising preseason performance, and there was a lot of talk and hype about him. But overall, aside from that promise, he went pretty ice cold. 16 catches over the year, only 1 touchdown, just over 200 yards. And actually, there were a couple of famous dropped balls, which may have rattled his cage a little bit last year. And, you know, obviously, who do you think Ben blamed for that, though?
Oh, of course.
But, like, just to think about their system, like, they are not going to hesitate to keep a second receiver as a complement to Juju Smith-Schuster. Antonio Brown is not going to be on that team in September, so Juju isn't going to be able to do everything himself. Assuming that he is able to feed 2 receivers as well as he could last year, then James Washington could possibly have a breakout year. And he is actually a super fast and talented athlete. And he did redeem himself in some of those weeks after that big drop catch versus Denver. But I think we've got a lot to look forward to. And Big Ben still does have a really good arm. Let's just hope that he can take some of that energy that Ben and Juju and Antonio all had in the past couple of years.
It's a great pick. I love James Washington coming out of college. And it's nice to see that he could potentially fit into this scheme in Pittsburgh really, really well with Antonio Brown departing. So I think it's a spot-on take. I really like that.
Wow. He had 3 consecutive seasons at Oklahoma State over 1,000 yards, and his last was 1,500 yards.
Yeah, like dude's off the chain.
13 touchdowns. Yeah, he was phenomenal in college.
He's humble. He's due for a breakout.
Yeah.
Lando, back to you, pal.
All right, I'm going to go with a pretty obvious pick. I'm going to go with Gus Edwards as a breakout.
The Gus bus, baby.
Alex Collins getting arrested and dropped by Baltimore, but that leaves the door wide open for for Gus Edwards, I mean. And he almost broke out this season. He had a game with over 19 and a half points in a half-point league. A couple games, 3 games over 100 yards. With the Ravens, and I think this season he should be set and ready to go for a good, consistent breakout season. I think he's going to be one of those guys that finishes the year surprisingly atop the running back positions, and kind of like a Chris Carson did last year, where they're going to run the ball so much in Baltimore that he'll have no choice but to be considered as a top running back.
Hey,
yeah, that's my guy.
That's a guy that I've talked about a couple times, and I think he's, like I've said in the past, he's super safe, and I really like that, especially now with the news of Alex Collins, no longer being with the team. So that'll be long gone news by the time this episode airs, but I think it's definitely worth noting for people who have maybe tuned out of NFL news. So.
Yep.
I'm going to go with one of my guys, Aaron Jones, running back for the Green Bay Packers. If you watched Aaron Jones play football, it's almost mind-blowing at this point how it took him 10 weeks to get more than double-digit carries. So Mike McCarthy and his team just not using Aaron Jones well. The way that a lot of Packers fans think that he should have been utilized throughout the season. And I think, the proof is in the pudding. When you saw him get the ball, what he could do with it, it definitely lifted that offense. So Aaron Jones currently ADP for 2019, back of the third round, 34th guy off the board. I would anticipate that going up a little bit. But if you look at Jones's season last year, when he started getting consistent work and, technically the starter, over a 7-game stretch in the middle of the season, he had 532 yards, 19 catches, 165 receiving yards off those catches, and 9 scores. So if you break that down, that puts him as the 9th best running back in that sort of time frame. And I know that's being very selective, but it just goes to show you with a full workload what he could do, averaging just over 18 points per game in a half point per reception league. So guys in front of him, Todd Gurley, Saquon, Melvin Gordon, Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Kareem Hunt, Zeke Elliott, and James Conner. It's safe to say that Kareem Hunt probably won't be in that conversation. So to say that Aaron Jones could be a top 10 running back next year, I think is highly likely, given the hype around him, given the excitement from Matt LaFleur talking about Aaron Jones. My chips are all in on Aaron Jones. If I can get him in the 3rd or 4th round, I'm going to be super, super happy, because I think the breakout is inevitable. It is definitely coming for him and the offense.
That's an interesting pick. I know you're going to talk about the Packers, and we all love Aaron Jones from what he was able to do last year. And I think there's just a certain excitement around the change in Green Bay, and that perhaps Aaron Jones, despite all of his success, could even be used in better ways. And I do hope to see a lot more action for him as well.
Take it home, Mark.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about a guy who right now his role is unsolidified, but I'm going to talk a bit about Tevin Coleman.
Oh, baby.
So Tevin is soon to be, as we can, he's going to be a free agent as of next week. He has played second fiddle to Devonta Freeman, who got paid by the Atlanta Falcons. And at this point, it's looking like Tevin could end up somewhere like the Jets. However, the Jets are also looking a lot at a certain Le'Veon Bell. So we don't really know what's going to happen there. But let's just think hypothetically that the job goes to Tevin. So in New York, he would be, highly flexible, as he always has been. He can perform lots of roles. He's not necessarily a power back. He's kind of like a perimeter type player. But wherever he ends up, whether it's even as an outside runner or a pass catcher, he's a solid back. And to get a starting role somewhere is all it's going to take for Tevin to break out. What do you guys think?
Yeah, there's a great opportunity for him.
Yeah, he's certainly proved himself.
I think he's a lot better and proven than a lot of these rookie guys coming out. So a landing spot like Tampa Bay, Houston, Philadelphia, all these are potential spots, and he's a versatile running back in this league, catching a lot of balls out of the backfield, doing a lot with what he gets. From what I was watching the NFL Network, and there's a lot of buzz about Le'Veon Bell, but I think they were saying there's equal buzz around Tevin Coleman.
Well, and that's the
where
thing.
He's going to go.
There should be
for those two players to be mentioned in the same rung of the ladder is just enough for me to get hyped up about Tevin. Yeah, I'm hyped up about Le'Veon too, because if either of these guys ended up on like my team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I would be thrilled. But I'm just thinking like objectively here from a fantasy standpoint, wherever Tevin ends up, and those three teams you just mentioned, Tampa, Philly, New York, those are places where they're going to get him the ball.
Right.
Yeah, Houston.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy to think that between Le'Veon Bell and Tevin Coleman that Tevin Coleman could be the more attractive piece. He's going to cost you a hell of a lot less. He's 2 years younger than Le'Veon Bell. And, what we've already talked about, running backs in this league are more products of a system than the talents themselves. Obviously, there are those sort of exceptions to that thought, like Saquon Barkley, for example, who just measures off the charts, and his athleticism is clearly noticeable as a difference maker. But Tevin Coleman could be a much better candidate for price and for age. So,
well, and that's just it. And if you guys really want to talk comparison between Coleman and Bell, I read that over the last 3 years, Coleman's gained 20 plus yards once every 25 carries. How often do you think Bell gets that? Once every 46 carries.
Wow.
So that's just a little stat.
And they both play in fairly productive offenses. So, I mean, comparisons are fairly equal. I think a really, really good landing spot for Tevin Coleman might be Buffalo. Replace that Shady role that he's probably not going to be there next year with.
Does that guy even have legs anymore?
Such a down season, such a disappointment for Shady. There's this sort of storm looming with the whole thing with his kid and his baby mama drama, if you want to call it that. But man, I think Shady's going to be out. He's hit that threshold just over 30 where, running backs see a significant decline. Tevin Coleman will be fresh, ready to go. I think he could really fit that Buffalo system and give them a little bit of life.
It's safe to say there's lots of places where Tevin could end up and break out, in my humble opinion. Back to you, Lando.
So my last guy's another running back, and I promise this is my last guy that's going to finish in the top tier. But this is a guy I really liked last year, and for the city of Detroit, it's finally a 100-yard rusher, and that is Kerryon Johnson.
Carry on my wayward son, don't you cry no more.
I know he was Mackenzie's value last week, but I think he's going to really break out and come into his own, and should be and I'm really excited for him as a sophomore running back coming in and really doing it all in Detroit, being a pass catcher, getting that offense back into form. They really struggled last year, so I'm really vying for Kerryon as well as my final running back breakout.
Look, I know that I made a very strong, compelling case for Kerryon Johnson, and that you were just so motivated by my words that you decided to make him your breakout. So, when I logged into the doc, and I spent most of my time on the rookie show and the combine show. So when I logged in here and I was like, oh yeah, what? Landon. I know that part of that was due to me. So you know what? You are welcome. I'll give it to you. You are welcome.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the hard work last week.
I'm gonna navigate.
Mac?
I would love to carry on with my boy O.J. Howard. I know the tight end space is very unstable. It's muddy. It's gross. I think O.J. Howard and a surging Bucs offense who looks to maybe have a little bit more guidance. They have a little bit more stability with Jameis Winston being named the for sure starter for the team next year. You've got Bruce Arians coming in to revamp the offense, and O.J. Howard, athletic freak, showed that he could make big plays last year in a very electric offense, scored a ton, got more work. I think he continues to progress, and where you're going to get O.J. Howard this year, it's crazy to think that he wouldn't be top 6, 7 tight end with how poor the position is, but I think he could return a lot of points for what you put into him. So just looking really quick for ADP here, O.J. Howard in the 8th round. I think definitely well ahead of many guys at the tight end position. So I'm going to firmly put my chips in on O.J. Howard this year and a couple other Bucs players if I can get my hands on them.
Does it, being devil's advocate here, does it concern you that Arians hasn't utilized a tight end in his career so far?
Name me a tight end he's had to work with.
That's a valid point. Ricky Seals-Jones was the most recent I could think of, but
OJ Howard.
Yeah.
OJ Howard is potentially
A freak.
Like he is potentially one of the most athletic tight ends in the league, and it just is a matter of getting that ball to him and him staying healthy.
Man, like 6'6",
I totally agree.
250. Yee. Going into
He's-
year 3.
It's going to be a year for
him
How
him.
do you not?
him
Absolutely.
and Njoku are by far my two favorite tight ends coming into the season that are values where they're being drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm going OJ, man. Give it to me 8th round. I'll reach for that.
All right. OJ Howard. Good call. Love those Tampa Bay Buccaneers, boy.
Of course you do.
And, well, if you're going to give my team a quick shout out, I will talk about a Packer. I'm going to talk about Marcus Valdez-Scantling. He's
MVP. I mean
yeah.
MVS.
MVP. Sorry. Yes. Yeah, MVS is he's part of a really great looking team of young receivers, and he has got so much going for him. Like, he's got height, he's got speed, he's got weight. Like, he's just a big guy. I think he's got that. He's proven himself as a deep ball threat. Solid numbers last year as, probably about halfway through is when he started making a name for himself. And I think you were pretty spot on with your prediction on that too there, Mack. I remember listening to an episode before I was even on this show, before I even had the swimming notion of ever being a guest on this show. And you called it at the exact moment when he would have a moment last year. And while he did only finish last year with like 38 catches, 580 yards, and 2 scores, I think he is destined for at least 5 touchdowns on the year. I'm going to say maybe double the targets.
Yeah.
And that's just overall an offense that is going to have a lot more success this year, I think.
You'd hope so. Like, man. To be quite fair, Mark, I don't know if you had just listened at the right moment, but I was calling for MVS to have a breakout week for like 4 or 5 weeks, and then it finally happened. So, I might have just got really lucky, but yeah, you know what? I thought that trend would continue with him, and I think the whole offense as a whole just stalled. They just didn't look like the Green Bay Packers that everybody knew and, from my point of view, loved. But I think in 2019 we're going to see a completely different offense, structure, involvement. I think it's going to be really creative, really fresh, and I think MVS will be a huge piece of that offense, especially with Randall Cobb being gone. I think totally makes sense for MVS. I think he's the best rookie of the 3 guys they drafted. So I confidently think that, yeah, he's going to be a big guy.
Yeah,
Better than St. Brown?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, Jamon Moore was the one that I was most excited about going into last season, and he really just didn't get the field time. EQ, Equinemius St. Brown, I really like him, but I think MVS is the most game ready at this point.
There you have it.
Yep.
Landy, baby. Back to you.
All right, my last breakout of for 2019. I'm struggling between the two I want to pick. I'm gonna go with Jarvis Landry as a breakout. I think that Cleveland offense takes another jump forward. He's had breakout seasons, but he took a step back in Cleveland to be that high volume pass catcher that he was in Miami. So I think he's going to take a step forward this year. He's going to catch a lot more balls, a lot more touchdowns, and I think the whole team takes a step forward, and I think that translates into the productivity for Jarvis Landry in 2019. What do you guys think about Jarvis this year?
It's funny. I look at Jarvis Landry making that decision to go to Cleveland as a huge risk and potentially a step forward for himself because let's face it, he wasn't winning any championships. He wasn't doing anything productive in Miami, never really a playoff team. And let's be honest, Jay Cutler threw countless targets at Jarvis Landry because he's unable to make more than one read. So there's a reason why he got 113 receptions in 1 year is because he had an inadequate quarterback throwing him the ball. So he's not going to get that type of volume in Cleveland, but I think he has an opportunity to be part of something bigger. And so I think that was big for him. I don't know if I'm on the same page as you as being like a, top 12 to 15 wide receiver, but he's certainly one of my favorite players, and I'll definitely go to bat for him if I feel like it's just. But I'm actually a little bit worried about Jarvis in his current spot.
Yeah, it's it's super close. I think it's really close. I don't know. I'm looking at ADP and who's in front of him right now, and I think I would take most guys in front of him where he stands. He's in back of the 4th round.
Yeah. I'll be the first one to admit from last season that I remember saying at one point, like when Jarvis was hot, I was like, there's not one player you could trade me right now for Jarvis Landry. Like, yeah, there was, but I was figure of speech. He's almost untouchable on my team because I'm loving his involvement. I'm loving the connection he's showing with Baker. And then it just kind of like got stale, and then I was totally willing to just give him up for almost anything. So I don't know if like my point of view right now is based on that sort of experience, the highs and the lows, because there's tons, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Jarvis anymore.
I like him, Landon. Yeah, I'm on your side with Jarvis Landry. I really like the player, and I think he's quite dynamic, and I think he has a certain je ne sais quoi for making plays. Like he is going to be, I think he's going to just make his rapport better and better with Baker.
I'm going to talk just briefly. I'm not going to go too in depth with this player, but Dante Pettis, wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, kind of for the same reason I'm sort of leaning on Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy GQ, is because I really like the system. I'm excited for the potential for this offense with Kyle Shanahan sort of playing puppet master and a couple players making huge leap forwards. I think Dante Pettis could be, not predicting a breakout like a wide receiver 1, but I think he could go from, late round rookie pick last year to he's still going late round, but I think he could be like a fringe 2/3, definitely like a wide receiver 2 or a flex type player. I think Dante Pettis could be really, really solid. He showed us last year that he could make the big plays, had a 75-yard touchdown, 5 touchdowns on the year, only started 7 games, so the sample size we got from him wasn't that large, but I mean, if you put him on a 15 game pace, he's going to be just over 1,000 yards. So I think if you extrapolate his usage, he certainly could be definitely a wide receiver 2. I think is his ceiling for his current usage, but he's going to have to catch more than 50 balls because that's what he's sort of being projected to catch as of now. It'd have to be more in like this 65-70 range, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I really do like Dante Pettis as well.
Yeah.
All right, Marky, wrap it up with your pick.
Okay, I'm going to go kind of deep on this one just because it's a team that they're hard to really envision doing a ton especially at the wide receiver position. But I'm going to talk about D.D. Westbrook of the Jaguars.
Wow.
I believe his breakout will solely be based on their acquisition of Nick Foles, if and when that does happen. So it's kind of codependent on that. D.D. Westbrook is a super fast outside runner and has a lot of potential to make big plays, whereas some of those other receivers on the team, Keelan Cole, for example, like he's injury ridden, and we just don't have very much good QBing going on in Jacksonville. So someone like
QBing.
Nick Foles, has a fantastic arm. If he gets that starting role, then I just think D.D. Westbrook's stock goes way up.
I like that you're taking the combo.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning. Like it's what everyone is talking about right now for Nick Foles. It may not be like glamorous news like some of the players you read about, but Nick Foles going to Jaguars could be a complete difference maker on that team, especially for the receiving core. Like that receiving core was nothing to write about last year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's abysmal.
Yeah, so that's one take. I know it's a deep dig, but I think if Foles can end up there, then, and if Fournette can start playing a little better football and stay a little more healthy, then that offense could make some strides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good list, fellas. I mean, we got 12 guys on the table that could be breakout candidates for 2019. I know it's super early, but at least it gets us thinking into the future. So I think we'll leave it there for now and maybe revisit this, later into July or early August and sort of revisit these takes and see if they still hold any water. But I think I'm pretty happy for right now with what we came up with.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So in what's becoming traditional fashion, we're going to end the episode with something light, a would you rather question. I'm going to sort of flip this over to you guys to make a decision. I got a couple lined up here. Do you want something that is more lighthearted, a sort of sticky predicament, or something deeper?
I'll leave this in your
Deeper.
Core. Yeah, let's go
deeper.
If I'm talking about
right.
D.D. Westbrook, I'm digging deep.
We're going deep. All right. This is a tough one. Would you rather continue your life as it is right now, or with everything you know, restart it?
Would I be
We're
restarting
talking, 30 years here.
as my exact self?
You are restarting as yourself, not as somebody else. You are flash back to, well, actually, we'll say present day, but you are now yourself. So that means no nostalgic, no Dunkaroos, no Pokemon, no,
But I know what
original
all of
Nintendo.
those are. I just won't be able to.
Yes, you know what they
experience them
are.
when I
You
reach,
just
like youth and adolescence and all that.
You are a 19 baby. You are a 2019 baby.
But you know what you know now.
Yeah. Which might not help you, but it's not like it's going to help you come up with a new invention.
And that makes it easy for me. I'm going to keep going the way I am right now.
For what reason?
If I went back to 1989 and relived my life again, I would probably do that, and I could make some wagers on some big Super Bowls and make some money that way, and change some things here and there. But
what we're saying is you can't parlay that for the future, right?
That's right.
Like you can't parlay that knowledge to you would understand everything that happened before you, but you are an infant in 2019.
So
Right.
I am thinking that if I was born knowing everything I know now, physiologically speaking, I am born with a fully developed frontal lobe. And thus, will my brain undergo another full development? Do I have the potential to have twice the brain power of what a...
Absolutely not, no.
So I'm just a baby.
I love that
I just,
Mark looks into things more.
So
You
I'm a
have
baby.
memories,
I
not
know,
intelligence.
I can do long division, but I can just sit there and say goo goo gaga. That's it.
Sure.
Inside my head, I know what I know now, but on the outside, I'm just a baby.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going as I am.
I mean, the only advantage to restarting right now is you get an extra 30 years to live, of the human experience. So, I mean, you can put it that way. Yeah, 30 years is a long time. Right? I mean, reliving a childhood might be kind of fun.
Yeah,
And you would you wouldn't have to go through the struggles of AOL dial-up, internet. standard definition TV.
Yes,
You would have
really experienced a lot going through that. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Struggles.
man, like my first phone was they had like. Do you remember the Nokia brick phones? Like had Snake. Like that was lit back in the day. That was the stuff. The Motorola, like Razr, the flip phones. Like you would get an iPhone straight out the gate.
But now all your friends will just, their career path will be a YouTuber and everything instead of like real careers.
Real careers. Yeah, I don't know.
They aspire to be ninja, a gamer.
I'm quite happy where my life is.
Me too, actually.
Right
You know
now.
what?
So I think I would.
To solidify any point I've made so far, I could not be happier to have been born in 89 and to have lived through a time where all of my free time was spent outside and playing and really it was, as people talk about, simpler times than what
100%.
Kids are living their lives like now. No, it's not. Like, times have changed. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong, nor could I judge the way kids are now, but I think I am super grateful for the way I came up.
I'm a lot happier spending my childhood days playing road hockey or, meeting my friends out the park, not having to text, than, playing Fortnite 5-6 hours a day inside, getting obese.
Yep.
I'm judging, but...
Not, yeah. I fully developed my interpersonal skills growing up.
100%, yeah.
Kids are not doing the same now.
No. So that's unanimous, eh? We're all going to continue?
Yep.
Unanimous St. Brown.
I think one thing that was like overlooked, like getting a house in 30 years from now is going to be so hard for younger adults growing up.
True.
Like that opportunity to make substantial money is gone.
Yep.
Like there's going to be a restart on the economy, on a lot of things. And I think we caught it at the right point for some of us. And, people in the future are just, it's going to be so hard to get into that market. So I don't know. I'm happy. I'm happy with where I'm at. And I would definitely continue.
You are going deep.
Yeah. Well, Mark wanted it, man. So
That's right.
that's what we're doing.
But I also wish I was a YouTuber making millions.
Right?
Yeah. Hey.
Well, we're on our way, fellas. The fantasy, the Saturday morning snap.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today.
The Saturday morning snap.
Oh, you stealing my outro?
That's
All
my
right, boy.
outro,
You want to?
guys.
You know what? You take it away. I'm just going to sit back and listen. Go, Marky.
All right. Like, wherever you guys are listening, we appreciate you putting your ears into us. Tune in next week for more fantasy updates from myself, Landon, and Mackenzie. And wherever you're listening, just find us and give us a quick subscribe. We'd love to hear your comments on any platform, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or leave us a review wherever you're listening to us. All right? We love you all. Thank you for listening today.
Well done,
I just
sir.
lost my job. All right, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SMS_fantasy. Support this independent podcast at patreon.com/Saturday Morning Snap.